Hey guys, my name is Maysim and today we are doing this Facebook Live, and today my guest who is here with me is Kevin Khoo. Some people know him as Teacher Khoo. And
Hello.
yeah, and today our topic is going to be about learning, teaching, and how the world is really going to be changing in that direction. So my name is Maysim, I'm an astrologer. Focusing mainly on psychological astrology, especially right now, helping people sort of really find how they can be most useful, with their lives. And Kevin, maybe you tell people like what do you do and what kind of tutor are you?
Hi everybody, my name is Kevin. My YouTube channel is called Teacher Khoo. I learned astrology from May. Initially was a hobby. My real profession is actually teaching math. I was a school teacher previously, and then a couple of years, no, actually a decade ago. Okay, so 10 years ago, I left MOE and then I started my own tuition center. So as I said about learning astrology from May, right, it's something that helped me a lot in sharpening my teaching skills for the last few years.
So what do you teach? Do you teach like adults? You teach kids, or what level to what level?
I teach upper secondary, Sec 3 and 4, as well as JC.
Okay, why did I invite Kevin today? I think one of the biggest reasons is that the world obviously changed a lot in the last 1 year or so, mainly because of the COVID pandemic. But of course, Kevin is from an industry where it was immediately affected by the pandemic. One of the
Yeah.
first things that occurred was, in order to protect the children,
Yes.
governments worldwide, not just in Singapore, shut down schools. Official schools were immediately hit. But I thought Kevin might be able to give a bit of a unique perspective because he's not really a MOE teacher. He's a private tutor.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I
in
was
fact,
lah.
well, you were, but I mean, when the pandemic happened,
Yeah.
it affected you as in your capacity as a tutor, a private tutor. So let's get into what were some of the changes, like what did you experience when the rules suddenly changed?
Okay. So it was a nightmare for sure. Of course, when the nightmare is over, then you look at, oh my God, what a sweet dreams, what a roller coaster ride. But at that point of time, it was around late March. And when COVID started to get into the society, it hit various industries almost like day after day. So one day, suddenly the news released saying that all tuition centers have to cease operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no more physical lesson. And at that point of time, I thought things shouldn't go so serious. So I wasn't that pessimistic, which means actually I was really quite unprepared for that change lah. So, and at the point of time, it was terrible for me because uh, all my classes are face to face. They are all physical lesson. Yeah,
So what happened? Did you have to cancel the classes?
I almost had to. So
Okay.
at the point of time, I think the news came out on a Wednesday, and most of my classes are on weekends, which actually means that I only have Thursday and Friday to react to it. And if I can't react properly, right, then I will have to resort to canceling classes lah. Yeah. So canceling one weekend classes is no big deal, but if you have to cancel months of classes, that which means I'm going on months without income.
I think when the circuit breaker was first introduced, if I remember correctly, at first it was a 1 month thing, right? And then
Yeah,
after that they extended, and then when they
extended.
extend, they didn't even say when it will end. You
Yeah, so
remember?
it's like, they
Yeah,
say, oh, we extend for maybe one more month, but you don't know how long also.
yeah.
It
In
might
India, it
just keep
was
on
extended
extending.
again and again, right? If you recall. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, so that time, okay, so also thanks to your warning because of your predictions, right? So with actually a lot of Jeremy's help also, he taught me how to use Zoom for tuition, which I was like so clueless what to do. So then we try out lah. So I made some very very clumsy attempt to have tuition over Zoom. I mean, compared to the quality of lesson that we are having now, right? I would say that last year, March and April, the quality was really not very good.
Can you give some examples as to like what are some of the things that normally you can do, but it was not very possible with Zoom training?
Okay, first of all, is that before we can try out Zoom, right? It was what the possibility was that we might just cancel lesson forever. So thankfully, due to Zoom, we can have lesson, which means I can continue my work and income, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but then even with Zoom, right, there was quite a lot of inconvenience because first thing, a lot of students actually didn't have printer at home. I would say about half of them. So our lessons require, I mean, it's math, it's practices. They need to write.
Yeah.
And usually I'm the one who print all the notes so that they can practice in class, face to face. So at that point of time, half of the students are saying that, oh, we don't have a printer. I cannot print out those notes, worksheet. So the first problem I had to overcome is to print out and mail them, snail mail, not email. So I have to, like, in envelopes, we have to mail them those worksheets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you still doing that?
No, 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 no. Because I think right now all the students, or at least their parents, have bought printers for their family. Yeah.
Okay. So it's still important for them to write it out rather than as in is that part very hard to automate or to digitalize the working portion?
I will say, because the exam formats tend to be written, when you go to school exams. So
Yeah.
of course you can absorb and digest learning. Of course you can just learn without writing, but still the practice part actually still comes in the physical writing and practice lah.
Actually, it's very interesting, right? Because just now when you said that the exam format is still the written format, then
Yes.
what all I'm thinking is that heng last year that around the time of the exam period, which is the October-November period, that
Yeah.
actually the COVID situation had improved enough for the students to physically go for exam. Now,
Yeah.
had that been different, what if they cannot go and they cannot even physically go into the school? Then how do you think they would have done the exam?
So a lot of people were like speculating, say, if things got serious, right, would O level, A level be cancelled? Or would it be actually like all done in a isolated area? Or invigilators going to your house, or what? Or maybe are you going to do exams online? So all these were possibilities back for last year, I guess.
Yeah. So in a
If you think we
sense,
got lucky
last
with
year
that.
it was like a lucky thing, and I don't know if this was a problem that other schools have faced. Because if they have exams of I don't mean other schools, I mean other countries.
Yeah.
Because the timeline was different, right? People were like musical chairs. This country the number up, this country the number down. Yeah. So okay, and so is as far as you know, right? Is there any safeguards put in place that just in case, what if this year it gets affected, and I'll caveat by saying this that last month when I did my webinar and I put out my predictions for 2021, I actually did suggest that the any kind of a health situation could potentially extend all the way until, I'll say, October, November, if there's going to be a hit. And anyway, it's a
National exam
possibility.
period.
Yeah, in any case, I don't think any of us can, if we put astrology aside, there's still a possibility that during exam period there could be something like this happening. Do you know, like, what is likely that people can expect if this happen?
Okay, so this one is, I would think it's entirely up to the government, right? MOE to decide how serious is the issue. If it's like not too serious, then at most everybody will just wear masks and sit with a further distance from each other in a bigger exam hall in different rooms. So if that's things are like slightly more serious. But of course, when things get super serious, then I would think that given that we have, because now it's February and we have more than half a year to prepare for our end of year exam, okay, I'm not speaking on behalf of MOE, but I'm just guessing that they probably should be also preparing for the possibility of doing online exams. Of course, then the next issue is how would you ensure that nobody's cheating?
Yeah, to administer all the, it's not just the cheating part, there are a lot of other admin, like collecting the papers and that kind of stuff. It's not so easy, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So exam is going to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's an interesting thought, because now that the idea of a pandemic is already within the consciousness, right?
Yes, everybody is aware by it.
Yeah, it is. So for the people who are watching this, right, you guys, if you have comments and like experiences of your own, even as an adult, if you're taking courses, and I'm very sure many of you undergone the same experience when you were supposed to do a course online. No, you're supposed to do a course live, and then because
Yes.
of pandemic, you went online. So
Yes.
how did it affect? And at the beginning, like Kevin said, first 1 to 2 months, actually nobody really know how to do this properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did you experience, Kevin? Like, what other than the worksheets, because we talked about this before, and you shared a few hiccups or difficulties from transiting live to online course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, besides the materials aside, and another thing was the how convenient it is, right, for a teacher to check the students' work.
Mm.
Because in a live lesson, a teacher can just walk around, bend down a little, take a very quick glance at the student's paper, and see the workings, the answers, and it's not just the final line, final answer. It's like the entire working, the presentation, how you write it. So it's quite easy for you to check that everybody is on track. Like it's like following your pace, or they're doing their work correctly. And if they have an issue, they can like just ask teacher
Yeah.
without interrupting the whole class. I mean,
Yes.
when the teacher is walking around quietly, the student actually can just quietly ask and whisper without interrupting the whole class.
Yeah.
But when it's come to Zoom, right, it's so difficult for the teacher to like check every student's work. Basically, every student got to do things like write something and they're like, oh, show me, show you. Is this the answer like that? Oh, can you see? Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like so you actually did that. They have to hold up the worksheet to the webcam, then like sure, correct or not, like
I
that.
think that's the first, I think 2 or 3 weeks lah, and then
Yeah.
we all find that that's such a bad idea. So then eventually we evolved to people taking photos, which is much clearer,
Yeah.
and then they send it over to the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. So but okay, even if you took pictures and sent to WhatsApp group, right? Did it take significantly more time for you to actually check the work?
It is still a lot slower. It's just that it's clearer lah.
Yeah.
The resolution is better. At least the pictures don't move, but still, I think it's still a lot more time consuming. So eventually, I had to tell them, say, I will only check your work after the class, not during. Which
Yeah.
means that during the class, I will go through the answer. If your answer is wrong, then we explain the rationale. What is it about?
Actually, what Kevin is sharing here to those who are listening, I think is very profound. That the teacher is actually changing the order of the activity. Right, because normally it's like, okay, we do the activity in class,
Yeah.
then correct or wrong, we on the spot we check. But now Kevin is saying, okay, do the activity first, right or wrong, the fact is we don't know yet because I got no time to check now. I can
Yeah.
only check after class. Then I'll WhatsApp you if your answer is not correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the end of the lesson, usually you'll end off with, okay, guys, I'm going to check your workings. So I will message you if there's any problem.
Yeah.
So I'll spend probably like half an hour or more, if it's sometimes even 1 hour. So after the class, I'll be like looking through the WhatsApp and it's like, and then I'll reply and say, this question correct, no problem, all correct. Or some people that are, those with errors, he will take even longer time to explain to them what's wrong.
It's very hard to explain on WhatsApp, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
you know
why
what I mean, right? It's like, say if they put the wrong number and then you try to explain that this number is wrong and then they, which number? Then is if it's live class, I can just point this one wrong.
yes. So then it comes to what kind of errors are there. So if some errors are like very simple, very straightforward, careless mistake, you just copied this number wrong. So that's still quite fine. They will get it by themselves. They're like, okay. But sometimes it's like, no, you shouldn't do that. Then they'll be like, why? So the why question, right, is the hardest to explain over WhatsApp because there's rationale involved. There is like the understanding of the subject matter, which actually you need conversation. And I mean, you can do it over WhatsApp, but it's like super long messages, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's very tiring to type. It takes such a long time to type and it takes a long time to read and digest. So it does look like in terms of time, what I'm getting from your example is that first you teach the class, the student do the activity, right or wrong, still don't know. So you might actually teach the second half of the class without them actually knowing for sure whether the answer is correct or wrong. And then on top of that, you have to spend additionally, you have to OT at least another 1 more hour.
Yeah.
So your lesson, your teaching time or your work time is actually extended by an hour at least.
So as to ensure the quality of the lesson, in the past 2 hours can fulfill all this thing, right? But now you have to do some OT to make sure the quality doesn't drop because of change of mode.
And what you bring up, I remember in our phone conversation, I also told you this happened to me as well. So when I teach astrology, and Kevin knows because you're in my class, and everybody do the table, the CFM table, and all I need to do is to walk down the row, and I can see upside down, right? You're doing on your thing, but I look at your paper upside down, and I will know, this one you put wrong box. It just takes a point, and I just need to tell the student, and they're, oh yeah, wrong. But the thing is now, when my classes first got disrupted and I was teaching the same class, the exact same basic astrology class on Zoom, Same thing, I did what you did also, which was I got people to take screenshot of
Yes.
their thing and then to send on the WhatsApp chat. And it was a nightmare because you had something like 10 plus people putting CFM tables there. How to check in the middle of class?
Yeah.
It's not possible. So I had help. As some of you know, like I had help from Jeremy. So that I could continue teaching, then Jeremy would be checking and then texting people private message to tell them if something was right or wrong. But you know, everyone is distracted and everyone can't move forward because they don't know whether the answer is correct or wrong.
Ah,
Oh,
yes.
and that was such a nightmare, and it took so much time. It wasted an entire hour of my class just checking that thing, and everyone was so bored, and wow, it was a real nightmare.
So which
Yeah.
means there are a lot of waiting time.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think one thing about online lesson, be it Zoom or any mode, is that as compared to live lesson, is that usually because there's only one person speaking, or I say there's only one conversation that's allowed to go on in an online room. But if it's in a real live room, if you are whispering, right, you can actually still clarify a lot of doubts without interrupting the whole class. So the whole class can be like, be it 10 people or 20 people. They can be doing their own practices or doing their own reading, whereas there's some clarification going on in some corner, which you don't have to disrupt the whole class.
And just now you also mentioned that it makes it very hard for people to ask questions. So in the
Yes.
past, it was like, this one I don't understand. Then
Yeah.
it's like sometimes it's something easily settled in 1 to 2 minutes. But now somebody has to actually interrupt the teacher while he is teaching and
Hmm.
say, sorry, teacher Khoo, I need to ask something. And then there's this awkward silence while you ask your question,
Yes.
and everyone is so conscious that they're going to hold up the lesson. So then, and then if they're very conscious that you are pressed for time, then they choose not to ask the question.
Yes. They're being considerate actually.
They are lah, but at the
They
same
jeopardize
time,
their own learning.
yeah, but the thing is that means they walk out of the class not actually knowing something that they are totally confused.
Yeah. And actually that's a real issue for school lessons as well. I mean, there's actually quite a long period of time where school lessons are being held online.
Yeah.
So the issue that you just mentioned, right, it's not so severe for me because usually my classes tend to be quite small, about 4 to 6 people.
Yeah.
Secondly, is they actually know each other quite well. So the self-consciousness is not as severe as a school class, which is
With
usually
like 30,
25,
40 people, or now
25,
it's 25. Okay.
25 for
Yeah.
JC, then for secondary school it's about 40.
40 people. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Okay.
So first of all, let's face it, as a matter of fact, not many students are that interested in the subject matter in the first place to clarify, to
Yeah.
ask questions.
Yeah.
So most people actually they have this objective in mind that they just want teacher to finish lessons, stop talking so that I can go and do my own things.
And play games for kids.
And then there'll be like some imagine there's this classmate there who is like came out interrupting a class, extending the class, asking questions. Usually they will be like, scolded by the other classmates also. Yeah.
Yeah. As a teacher myself, and I teach adults, but the
Mm.
thing is, I'm very conscious that if there's 40 people in the class, you imagine, you cannot, as a teacher, you want to make sure that each person is getting the full experience or the full learning. But when it's very hard to see 40 people. Now, as somebody, I actually did a program where I have something like 30 over people in one of my
Can
programs.
your Zoom screen, can your computer screen fit in 30 plus faces?
That's the thing, it can't. So
Yeah.
even for Zoom, at the maximum, right, I think you can only put, I think it's about 20 something, maybe 30. But the
Okay.
moment you exceed a certain number, you have to press the arrow to
Oh, the
scroll
next
between
page.
the next page. So it means that even try as you might, you just cannot have so many screens at the same time. You can't even see their face.
Mm.
It's a real big challenge, really. So it's one of the students maybe waving and trying to get my attention, but
Yeah.
I don't even know they are doing that because it happened that my screen did not have that person's camera on my screen. So it's quite paiseh that they have to literally unmute and, May, I got something to ask you. I've been waving at you for the last 1 minute. Wow,
Then
it's
you
very
say, oh,
paiseh.
sorry.
Yeah, of course I'm mortified and I'm like, oh my god, I wish I seen that. But they're not angry with me, but it meant that somebody almost didn't get their question answered.
Mm. And I
Yeah.
mean, that the example of the student who actually unmute and ask, right? At least the person is so proactive until he or she will do something. But come on, Singaporeans, how many of us actually do that? There are actually a lot of people who are like, I actually have a question. never mind lah, it's okay. Then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult for them to sort of like it basically drawing attention to self. It can be quite hard.
I
And
think
yeah,
not everybody is as egoistic as me lah to keep on asking questions in class.
no,
I still remember myself
it's
being like a
it's
disruptive
fine.
student in your class.
For what it's worth, right? As long as it's on record on Facebook Live, Kevin he's a teacher himself, but he's a very active student. And in class, no, and the thing is, you ask very good questions, and sometimes is the teacher doesn't always, because you're a subject matter expert, you don't realize how sometimes two things doesn't connect for someone who is learning it for the first time. And it really helps that someone is actively asking the questions.
And there's this name for it. It's called parallax error.
Parallax error. Yeah, is it really? I mean, I know what parallax error is, but I didn't know that it applies to.
I mean, parallax in physics, it means the eye level lah. But in this case, actually, it's just if you are too experienced or too expert in a certain subject matter, you are unable to see it from a beginner's point of view.
Yeah.
Simply because your
It's true.
height is different. Yeah.
It's true.
I think a lot of teachers actually have this issue, and that is why most or all teachers need some students' participation in class to reinforce that, do you understand? And if you do understand, can you say something to let me know that you understand? And if you don't understand, can you sound out so that I can clarify that part before we move on? Yeah. So the feedback loop is so important because teachers don't know exactly everything. We need students to communicate too.
Yes, and I think that's why a lot of the online courses requires a lot of interactivity, which actually a lot of the teachers and I admit, even for myself, it's a skill that needs to be learned. Because in class it is like you say, if a student has a question, they will just raise their hand, and then the shy ones, they will come to you during the breaks, or they will come to you during the after class to come and ask. But now there's no such thing as the after class. There's no, there's that moment where everyone's packing their bag, then the teacher is like packing and finishing coffee, right? Then that's when you very like go and
the
ask the
shy
teacher.
student will go over. Actually, that's not that part, I don't get it.
Yeah, so it's like in a live class, there's always an opportunity for someone to do that. But in a Zoom thing, once the Zoom meeting end, then they don't get to ask the question.
Yeah,
which
you
is,
don't back one, you just end meeting.
Yeah, it's quite hard also, because also if the teacher extends the class, then you end up everybody, sometimes they stick around. At least for my classes, if I extend it for Q&A, the fact is people don't leave. They stick around because they also FOMO, right? What if somebody asks a really good question, I want to learn ma. So they all stick around, so the shy person will never dare to ask the question. Yeah, there's no one-on-one time at all, not possible.
And you mentioned about extending the class, right? Maybe for your class, you still can extend a little bit if you want to, or if the students allow. Tuition-wise, so far, I also find that I'm able to extend 5-10 minutes if necessary. But the problem now is school. School have this timetable that they are back-to-back. You cannot extend classes. And one thing I don't understand about school lessons is they're always packed so tightly until there's
no time in between, right?
Yeah. And so they cannot extend class, of course, and the shy students have no way to ask questions. I mean, unless they are willing to put themselves out and get the attention of the whole class, which for some people it is an issue. Usually, what the shy students, not me lah, okay, but usually my shy classmates, when I was a student, what they usually do is they will poke me, or they will poke the bolder students, the classmates, and poke and say, why And then the loudspeaker, they were like, Charmaine has a question. She's asking why this. But in Zoom, you don't do that.
Yes. So it's like I can see at least two problems that you have already highlighted. One is like, if the school have same amount of time, but the productivity of the class has gone down, now that means students are learning less. And the second thing is that the lack of connections and interactivity, which is a very big problem. But you know what, I'm just going to click into the live just so that I can see some comments. And wow, I see that there are actually a lot of comments. Okay, let's just have a look.